That here in a second. There we go.
Okay,
He goes, he doesn't know you at all.
all right. March 6th, 2024 City Council meeting is now called to order. Are there any conflicts of interest?
Not for me.
No. Okay. The hearing disclosure statement. We're moving right into public hearing on the application by the owner for a zoning text amendment regarding the R2 medium density residential zone. All persons testifying shall be deemed parties to the application and must provide their name and full mailing address if they wish to be notified of the decision, continuances, appeals, or other procedural actions required by the code. The city zoning code specifies applicable criteria to be relied upon in making a decision. These criteria and findings of fact are in the city staff report. Public testimony should be limited to those criteria and findings of fact or to other city or state land use standards that the person testifying believes apply to the proposed land use action. Failure to raise an issue in person or in writing with sufficient detail to afford the hearing body and parties to the hearing an opportunity to respond to that issue precludes appeal to the city council or the land use board of appeals, or to seek damages in circuit court due to a condition of approval. Before the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may ask the planning commission or the city council for an opportunity to present additional relevant evidence or testimony that is within the scope of the hearing. The hearing's body shall grant the request by scheduling a date to finish the hearing, a continuance, to a time and date certain, or by leaving the record open for additional evidence or testimony. Gosh, darn. I now hereby open the hearing. Do any of you need to declare a conflict of interest in this hearing?
No.
No.
I know one of the owners.
Okay. Personal bias. So you don't have any personal bias, though? Okay. Ask the audience, are there any challenges to the council's ability to make an impartial decision? Okay. Now, Garrett, we're gonna have the staff report. Is everyone? Do you feel it's necessary to have this full staff report or a summary of the staff report?
I vote for a summary.
Summary? Summary?
Yes.
Present summary?
Sure.
Garrett, can you summarize the staff report for us?
Yes, please let me know if you can't hear me or have trouble hearing me. All right, so this is a zoning text amendment proposal pertaining to the Drift Haven Inn. It's in the R2 zone currently, the medium density residential zone. In the medium density residential zone, hotels are not a permitted use, and they're also not listed as a conditional use. Because the Drift Haven Inn has been there for as long as it has, it's considered a non-conforming use. The idea is that it can continue in its present form, even though somebody couldn't come in and get a permit for a new hotel in the R2 zone. So the applicant has identified in their report some reasons that they would like to make the hotel use at least conditionally permitted in the R2 zone. And we'll get into those during the hearing. But what they're basically proposing is to change the list of uses that is conditionally permitted to include hotels established before a certain date that effectively limits the effect of the amendment to just being the Drift Haven Inn. So the Drift Haven Inn would become a use that is conditionally permitted in its current form, and any changes in the future in terms of building expansions, more hotel rooms, things of that nature, a new conditional use permit with a hearing before the Planning Commission would be required. So this decision is a zoning text amendment. It's the city council's decision to make. The Planning Commission had a hearing on it on February 8th after public notice was issued according to the zoning code. And no one other than the applicant and their representatives testified during the hearing, and we didn't receive any written comments from the public either. At the end of that February 8th hearing, Planning Commission recommended that City Council approve the zoning text amendment. There's basically two criteria for deciding on this. One is that the proposal should be consistent with the comprehensive plan. The staff report, in the process of writing the staff report, we went through the comprehensive plan, and you'll see that, you know, we made findings to the effect that the proposal is consistent with the plan. For the most part, the plan doesn't speak to this situation. And then the second criteria is that the proposal is supposed to serve a public need. And the staff report discusses that in a couple of different ways. One is that the non-conforming use status that the Drift Haven Inn currently has places it at some extra risk of not being able to continue in the future. For example, if they had some event like a fire and weren't able to rebuild for a couple of years, they would not be able to rebuild as a hotel with their non-conforming use status. Okay, so that's one of the kinds of things that the staff report talks about. Another that the applicant identified is that as the hotel owners continue to try to upkeep the property and maintain it and make improvements, financing is the people that offer financing for commercial properties definitely question whether they should finance projects that are on properties with non-conforming use status. So that's one way in which this serves a public need, is basically as it's needed for the Drift Haven Inn to assure that they can continue into the future. And the public interest in that is that they provide a service in some cases to residents or visitors who are coming to see residents of the city of Gearhart. They add to the city's tax base, provide hotel occupancy tax, bring visitors to the central city that spend some money and otherwise contribute to the city of Gearhart. The second way that this serves a public interest is that it establishes some clear expectations for the future about what kinds of things are allowed at the Drift Haven Inn site without getting further approvals through the Planning Commission. So if this is approved, then basically going forward, the applicant and the city will be able to clearly understand each other that if any expansion or change of use occurs, again, more hotel rooms, bigger hotel rooms that expand the footprint of buildings, adding additional accessory uses to the existing hotel use, all of these things would require a new hearing before the Planning Commission, and give the city some just some extra say in making sure that what happens at this site in the future, which again is in the R2 zone, a residential zone, is consistent with the code and the comprehensive plan. So those are the ways that the staff report summarizes that the proposal serves a public need. And with that being said, again, the planning commission recommended approval. If city council also approves the zoning text amendment, we would prepare an ordinance for a later city council meeting and bring that back for sort of the final approval of the ordinance amending the zoning code. I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm here to answer questions. And Peter, of course, is here as well, and Peter Watts. So thank you.
Thank you, Garrett. All right. Now we'll go to the applicant's report. And would you like to present it? I'm not sure.
Yes, please.
You are,
Yeah, come on.
yes, please.
Thank you.
Great start. Sure. My name is Matt Cole. Address is 415 Northwest 11th, Portland, Oregon 97209. I'm part of the investor group that bought the hotel a little over 2.5 years ago. We've invested a significant amount of money in the hotel in repositioning it and refurbishing the rooms. And our primary reason for coming in to you and asking for this is that we want to maintain the hotel the way it is. And this allows us to ensure that we can maintain the whole hotel the way it is. It also allows us to get a loan on the property to pay back our investors. To this point, we funded the venture entirely through cash, and we would like to be able to offer some of our investors some of their money back. And we're proud of what we've done at the Drift Haven. We want to keep it as part of this community, and we appreciate you considering our request.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm Brian Veracchione. I'm a planner at McKenzie in Portland. Our address is 1515 Southeast Water Avenue in Portland. And so I was the planner that helped prepare the application before you tonight. I want to thank Garrett for a fine staff report and a good summary of the issues before you this evening. I did want to point out a couple of things that we ran through with staff before getting to you this evening. A couple other ways that we contemplated potentially helping resolve the concerns about financing and stuff. One would be to outright permit hotels in the R2 zone, but that felt kind of risky because suddenly you could find yourself with hotels all over the place in the R2 zone, and that didn't seem appropriate. The other would be to rezone it to a zone that does allow hotels. But the problem with a rezone is there's no guarantee that you'll get the use that you think you might get, because once it's got that zone, anything on the list is allowed. And again, you might have a surprise on your hands. So the ownership asked us to try to find a way to make sure that this is beneficial to the ownership for financing and reconstruction reasons, but doesn't have negative effects on the city. So that's why we've come up with basically the category is hotels can be conditionally permitted in the R2 zone if they've been there long enough. Staff gave us a list of all the hotels in the city, and it just so happens that only this one hotel falls into that category. So that's our attempt to keep the city the way it is and benefit the hotel as well.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions for the applicant team. We also have an attorney for the owners on Zoom if there's any legal questions that come up.
Can I say something?
Okay.
This place was built by the T-Birds. Okay, it goes back to the 40s. It's been there, I think this is more of a housekeeping. I view it as more of a housekeeping issue as far as the zoning code goes.
I'm sure it is, because when they changed in '94 the zone, they should have made an exception at that time. You know,
When
it's
they wrote the comprehensive plan, they should have made it.
it's just the way it is with Gerhard and what they do in the past, what they've done in the past. Okay, anyone else got a question? No?
I do.
Then Rita.
Thank you. Do you plan on expanding the facilities at all in the near future? Making it larger in any way?
Not currently, no.
Okay, that's it.
Are you planning on increasing the height? Taking down one side since you get to, in this. Instead of the 1 year eliminates the possibility of. The non-conforming use, and now that you're going to be conforming, you could tear down half of it and. Put parking underneath real parking and put buildings up above, I mean. My question really stems to. I don't wanna see a 3-story building in downtown Gerhard. You know, it's just, that would be like, here's my thumb. So,
We have no plans to do that. I mean, obviously the site is limited by our septic
right,
system and the capacity, and we're fairly close to capacity as it is. The numbers would not work to build any sort of structure and go up and have structured parking there and have the hotel pencil in anyway.
okay. Any other questions for these gentlemen?
So just to be clear. If you reach the place where you wanted to make some changes like that, they would have to go through the planning commission. And get both their and our okay before they could do that?
I believe so. Peter, is that true? We'd have to have a hearing at the planning commission level and then our level if a conforming use.
That's correct. And this is written, I couldn't think of a way to write this more narrowly. And the standard is such that you would be able to say no to just about anything that you didn't think was palatable. It is a conditional use. The findings that we would make would allow you to say no. It does give them the opportunity to ask. But yeah, this does very little. It does make them a conditional use under the current zoning so they can get financing. And I independently checked with someone pretty high up in the lending field, and they told me it would be very difficult to get that a lender wouldn't basically recognize the pre-existing non-conforming use. It would be, is it allowed? And it's not allowed. So that all checked out. And then the legal standard to allow you to say no it's pretty broad. So I would not be terribly concerned if they bring something in that's palatable to the planning commission and city council. We could allow it with this change. If they bring in something you don't like, you could say no.
Okay, thank you very much.
I just want to add, conditional uses are a planning commission decision that could be appealed to city council. So when they need to get a conditional use, it would be a planning commission decision.
Okay,
And only to council if it was appealed.
all right. Any other questions?
Whoa, going kind of fast for me, so who would be appealing it?
Anybody within the neighborhood that might disagree with the decision or
Okay.
somebody else who is involved would appeal a decision for a conditional use potentially.
Any party at the hearing that testified in writing or in person would have the ability to appeal it to the city council, and then it would start anew. And then those people would have, if you guys approved and they didn't like it, they could take it to LUBA. So it would be like anything else.
But the initial conditional use process lies with the planning commission, and it would not come to the city council unless it was appealed.
Okay. I have one other question for you. This doesn't really have anything to do with anything, but I'm just kind of curious. You guys did a lovely job of putting in all the irrigation to the south and putting in lawn. I'm just wondering what are you doing with it?
We have no plans
Nothing.
right now. Again, we're limited by the septic as well. So as of right now, we're going to continue to keep it as a green space and the lawn for now.
Anybody else?
I have a question, but it's for Chad. Chad, have there been any complaints from the neighbors around the Drift Haven about any problems with traffic or noise or anything that we should know about?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Any proponents wishing to speak at this time?
Thank you.
Okay. I would say you're dismissed, it's, you know. Okay, are there any opponents wishing to speak at this time? Are there any neutral comments? People who want to make them at this time? No applicant's rebuttal since no one spoke. I am going to close the hearing. Now we can discuss. If everyone's in agreement, you can make a motion. But if you want to discuss and you have a point you want to make, we can discuss.
I'll make a motion, we approve the function.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we've had a first and a second. All those wishing to, there's no discussion because we've already gone through that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Congratulations, gentlemen. Now, I guess we're going to adjourn the hearing. This hearing is now adjourned. And what do we have? 38 minutes?
But it does say on the top of the posting that we did for this, it says tonight's council meeting begins at 6 p.m. due to public hearing, regular city business immediately follows. So that's how we noticed the meeting today. It didn't get on top of the agenda that was delivered out, but it did get out on the posting, so you have your options there.
Okay, well, if that's the case, and that is a posting that somehow didn't get put on our agenda, I'm going to move to open the city council meeting, March 6, 2024. And I'll ask for a declaration of conflict of interest again, just to be on the right side of life. Anyone have a conflict?
No.
No.
No. Okay, great. So gentlemen, if you want, feel free to vacate.
Brian's gonna stay, I'm gonna stay, I'm going to the direct table.
I hear that's nice place.
I'm the only one there tonight, it's open.
He's gonna have a party.
All right, approval of minutes.
I have one comment, Carrie, if possible on the minutes.
Okay. Justine, please.
On the regular meeting, February 7th, should be a correction. Of the counselor's report. There is a section at the very bottom of page 1, counselor rule, that is the repeat, it shouldn't be in there, it should be deleted,
So we cross that out.
correct?
Which is about the employee handbook, correct?
It was from the January. No. Thank you.
So, starting off with. Now, I'll sequence again. January 30th. Work session. Any corrections? Motion?
I'll give you a motion to approve the minutes from the work session of the city council on Tuesday, January 30th, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye, it passes. All right. Regular meeting of the city council, Wednesday, February 7th, 7:00. Any corrections besides Justine's?
I have one.
When?
Page 3. Bottom of the city administrator section. Says Counselor Klepfer did reiterate planning commission had a public meeting on the issue. The rest of that sentence isn't quite right. I think maybe it's supposed to be that the intent was never to tell people that they could not remove a tree.
We're on page 3 of the
Yeah, right.
February 7th.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I just got a little
Okay,
garble.
and you fixed it?
Well, my fix is what it is. Okay.
Anyone else with the correction? All right, a motion with correction,
I move that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the city council Wednesday, February 7th, 2024, as amended.
second,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on to the work session of the state legal council for Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. Are there any corrections? Any discussion? Motion,
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the work session of the city council from Tuesday, February 13th, 2024.
second,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, it passes. Special meeting on Wednesday, February 28th. Are there any corrections? Oh, there was something. That's fun. At the top, it says 7 PM online and it actually started at 6 PM. All right. Motion,
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for the special meeting of the city council on Wednesday, February 28th, 2024 with the amendments we just discussed.
Second.
all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, it passes. That's all done. Planning commission report, everyone has it in their packet. Is there any questions for Chad to answer? Okay, I've got 2 of them. All right, moving on. Mayor's report. There was a heck of a lot of meetings last month. I'm not gonna report them because we just okayed all the minutes to them. I did on Thursday go to Pacific Ridge Elementary School and met with 4 classes of 4th graders, inviting them to participate in If I Were Mayor poster contest, which we hope will get a few entries. Last year there were 27 and I can't tell you about all the other meetings because they just go out of my mind when I start talking. Anyway, that's my report. Council reports. I'm gonna start with Dana.
Okay, so this is something that I should have addressed last month, but I didn't because, well, it was kind of new. It was still a little raw and I wasn't sure I wanted to, but, since then some things have come up, and I think it's pertinent to discussions that are going on in our community. So, at 2 AM on January 30th of this year, my 30-year-old son and his girlfriend were in their basement apartment in a house up on Bond Street in Astoria when they heard some noise going on upstairs. The noise persisted, it got louder, and eventually they discovered that the house above them was engulfed in flames. They grabbed the cat, nothing else. They ran out the door, had to hop over a downed power line in order to get out safely. And the fire trucks showed up. A lot of agencies showed up. Astoria, of course, took the point on that, but also I would like to point out that our department was there also. Chief Como and Andy Parks, I also later learned that Michael Mond and Rob Brooks were there. So this is important. One other thing that I wanted to mention about that is that my son called me immediately as it happened, knowing how these things go. I said, okay, well, you're the first shift. You stay there until they clear out. When you need some sleep, you go get some sleep and I'll come down there and sign all the documents so they can get in and do their investigations. So I went down there at 8 o'clock in the morning. There were still firefighters there. I had to come here to City Hall for a meeting at, I don't know if it was 10:30 or 11 o'clock. But sitting right next to me were Chief Como and Deputy Chief Andy Parks, still going strong right next to me, and I know they had to have been tired. I later wrote a letter, not knowing everybody who had been there. I wrote a letter to the Astoria Fire Department, thanking them, and this is the response that I received from them. Thank you for taking this time to send us this email. I'm glad we were able to assist you and your family. Fires are devastating and such a terrible life event to go through. We do our best to try and minimize its impacts. I'm so grateful for our amazing team of firefighters, not only in Astoria, but our entire county. We work very well together. Our team in Astoria is small, but we do our best, and sometimes it's the little things that count the most. I will make sure to share your message with the team. Have a great day, Astoria Fire Chief Crutchfield. So again, I wanted to share that and give a shout out to our firefighters that were there, and again, my gratitude, because my son, well, as you can imagine, whatever the smoke or the fire didn't destroy, the water did, but with their help, we were able to at least get out his essentials. We later did find his cat, and we also got a couple of pieces of furniture out that had great sentimental value. I mean, the firefighters were there lining up and helping us haul things out. So that is the value of our fire department. So following on that, piggyback on that, this last month has been kind of busy for me with personal things, but also gathering information about the needs assessment for the fire department, which we always promised would just be a preliminary informal thing. We are going to have a formal one done later. We've got some great feedback after some of the town halls. One of the best pieces of advice that we've been given is to talk more about the structural changes that we need and why making some of the smaller changes that seem like, well, you should just go do those, could trigger the need to then make greater ADA changes and much more expensive repairs to the building than some people might imagine. So that's going to be an ongoing thing, and we're going to still continue to gather information. We have some other questions that have been coming up that I think we need to address before the needs assessment would be, the preliminary needs assessment would be ready to go out to the public. So I ask that you be patient with me on that, and we're continuing to work on that. Also follow up in our meeting in our work session, we talked about grants. And I talked a little bit about the Senate Bill 4690 was the one that I couldn't remember the number of. It was introduced to the US Senate in 2022. It's currently collecting dust sitting there, and it's probably not going to go anywhere. It was just a very partisan bill. Then last year in 2023, SB 977, which is essentially a very similar bill, was introduced. It's called the Facilitating Investments Required for Emergency Services to All Towns in Our Nation Act. This was unlike the other bills that have been introduced, both in Congress and in the Senate. This is a bipartisan introduced bill, and it would provide grants for fire station construction through FEMA. It was introduced a year ago. It was moved to the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, and they're languishing, also collecting dust. Who knows if they will look at that again in a year like this when we have so many other things going into such an important election. I'm not super hopeful about it. The one thing that I am hopeful about is that this was not only a bipartisan introduced bill, but it was also introduced and supported by members of both Congress and Senate, which is maybe someday. And one of the things that it said was that it wanted to offer money eventually, if it's approved, and this could take a couple of years for this to go through, that 25% of the money that was set aside would be earmarked for volunteer departments. And then an additional 25% would be available for the other, all of the pools. They identified 3 different pools of agencies that could apply for it. Like I said, one of them was a volunteer, and then there was one that was just open where all of the agencies could apply. So we would have, perhaps, if it's passed, and if we have a viable project that the public supports and money to match, that might be something we could look at in the future. Talk with citizens about the tree removal ordinance that we've been discussing over the last couple of months. Talk with Metro State Parks again. Chad, I'm gonna let Chad Sweet talk about that. He done some great work on that, but what we're trying to do is develop a response plan for July 4th this year and be a little bit better prepared for or build on what we did last year. And then also I'm looking to sign up for the April 2nd League of Oregon City Community Vision and Strategic Planning training in Newport. It'll be just a day trip, so it won't cost the county or the city anything. If I go, I'll probably make it into a personal family vacation. Won't cost it. I'm not.
Sharon.
Okay, I met with Angelina from our building department. And she helped me get the maps, city maps, pulled up at my home, which I wasn't able to do for the past 3 years. And I discovered, which I did not know, that the A2 zone, which is the aquatic zone, goes all the way up the Neocoxy to 7th. I had no idea. So I've been receiving information from a Gerhardt citizen who is looking very closely into the wetlands issue and the A2 zone issue. And discussing things back and forth with her. We're not ready to bring it to the city or to the rest of the citizens yet, but we will. Second thing is, Channel 8 out of Portland, KGW, I think it is, came and interviewed myself as well as several other citizens in our area about the elk situation. To my knowledge, the segment has not aired yet. I tried to reach out to him so I could report to you when it would air, and I did not hear back from him yet. That happened approximately 2 weeks ago. So, and then lastly, I've been going back through every city council meeting that I've been city council part of. And looking for things that kind of have fallen by the wayside. And this is actually at a suggestion of some Gerhardt citizens, one of whom is sitting in our audience, about having some type of a way to track things that are discussed but not resolved or not adequately discussed. So I'm going back through and I'm making a list so we can see what hasn't been followed through with. And we'll try to move something along those lines. That's all.
Thank you. Rita.
I have nothing.
All right. Preston.
I have nothing as well.
All right. Okay. Moving on, we have the police report. We have the chief of fire chief's report. Or is he here?
He is here, I'll be grab him real quick.
I don't know if he's here, but it is report, he's here. Pardon me? Yeah.
He's not going to be here in just seconds.
Might wanna get Chief Gregory in the batter's box.
The what?
Chief Gregory. in the
But Chief
batter's-
Gregory is out today. He's not able to make it. He's has some things that he's got to take care of at home. He's got a sick family working on a new HVAC system. So he's in a wheelchair.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Going from one meeting to the next. From there, so what I got for you guys tonight is our incidents and data stats for February last month. There was a total of 47 calls, 29 inside city limits, 10 was in the district. We sent out eight times. 3 was the seaside, all 3 for building fires, 4 of them was to Warrenton. 2 fires, 1 MVA and 1 they needed extra manpower helping with a call, and then went to Napa once for building fire for there. How that matches for last year, February of 23 had 28 calls, and February ended on call 82. When did February of 24, last month, on call 112, so we're 30 calls ahead of last year.
Great.
That's-
Any questions for the chief? Okay, you can go back to another meeting.
Go back to them, thank you. You guys are great.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Ask for the money.
Okay, so I kind of just took a comparison from February 2023 last year to February 2024 this year. And overall, our revenues are 3.1% higher. And expenditures are 6.3% higher. Which the net difference translates to a favorable 0.6%, or about $22,000 compared to last year. So it's pretty good, at least we're in the positive. Some interesting revenue highlights are Pacific Power franchise fees increased from last year to this year, 22.1% so far. Marijuana tax decreased 34.4%. We still have another quarter, so we'll see how that ends up panning out. And transient room tax stayed almost equal. It had only increased 0.3% from last year. So those are some strong revenue sources for us and some just little statistics to throw out there for you. To date, the city's revenue streams are still on target to meet expenditures. This month, noteworthy revenues included the annual Northwest Natural Gas and CenturyLink franchise fees payments, as well as a state apportionment payment in Fund 45, the state revenue sharing. In expenditures, there were payments in Fund 20 for the city's annual debt service payment on our water construction bonds. So we have an interest payment earlier in the year, and then we have our big payment that's due in February. That's the end. And a payment in account 3382 to assist with some programming requirements due to the implementation of our water rate change. So the tiered rate system, we had to work with Springbrook. Christy and I think, had probably 11 meetings with them as we worked through implementing those rate changes and putting them in. So they had ran one cycle. And the final state revenue share grant payment to CASA. So all of our state revenue shares have been paid out to date, the grant awards. CIS had their conference last week, and unfortunately, preliminary rate projections had been released for liability and health insurance plans. And it looks like, as you might expect, everything is going to increase, and maybe a little more than I would have liked to see. I would encourage council members, if they haven't already looked at this magazine, to look at this magazine. If you get this, this is a great resource, and it has some really good articles in it this time about things that are relevant right now. So I would recommend trying to find this email if you get this, or let me know and I can forward it on to you. It's got some great articles in it.
Thank you, Justine. All right. Peter Watts, City Attorney.
So the Portland State meeting with our population projections, which is critically important to us because it establishes what our shared state funds will be, is tomorrow. It's divided up into 3 days. I went to today's because I had a city And other than the city that I was there for, which I feel like their projection was maybe a little bit low, but close to accurate. The other cities seemed very, very low, which, to give you an idea, between 2016 and 2020, and I had not known this, the city of North Plains grew by 94%, their population. And PSU has them over the next 10 years at growing around 25%. And the first real opportunity to get that updated, if the numbers aren't accurate, will be in 4 years. So hopefully they'll, I have raised with them several times concerns about the accuracy of their last projections related to Clatsop County, which will likely require us to get a whole new buildable lands inventory and housing needs analysis. And so I would hope that they've taken more time and care, and that we'll see accurate numbers. If we don't, and I think our staff's done a great job of getting them information, if we don't get accurate numbers, we'll probably want to talk to the other jurisdictions and consider what our options might be, because workforce housing is such an issue. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but so the meeting will be tomorrow. I'll be there, and hopefully that will go. Hopefully that'll go well and provide some opportunities. The main person that does the projections is Dr. Huda Al-Kitkat, and she kind of does the first round, and then there are 2 other PhDs that kind of look at the numbers as well. But I asked, and they do not look at the area within they don't look at the amount of urban growth boundary that cities have, or proximity to urban services like water, which I was shocked to hear. Anyway, so that's something that I've been in touch with planning staff about, and I know that they're watching it very closely as well. And we'll have a full report out as soon as we get that information. Some of you may be aware there's been some recent case law related to recreational immunity. And there is an erosion of cities' recreational immunity. We're going to be doing some signage around the city, likely, that you'll see, that specifies that our paths are for exclusively for recreational use. And the reason for that is because plaintiff in a case made a argument that while they were walking their dog and had an accident on a city path, not our path, fortunately, they were walking to recreate. The walking that they were doing to go to their walk to recreate, they argued, was not recreating. So, I mean, whether someone thinks that their walk is recreating or not recreating, it's like purely subjective, and I don't know how we could ever prove whether they were intending to recreate or not recreate when the activity is identical. But the answer in the short term, unless the Supreme Court weighs in or the legislature changes the law, is just going to be more posting of signs. And then if someone were to make that claim, we would argue that if they weren't recreating on our path, they were trespassing on our path. So that's how we will attempt to deal with it. I know I have a couple of agenda items on the regular agenda, so I'll wait on those unless we get more questions. Other than one thing that I'll mention, and it's kind of this erosion of our immunity during the ice storm that happened in the Portland metro area. There were some people who had applied for tree cutting permits. Those permits were denied despite them having arborist reports. Apparently, this is anecdotally, but I believe my source for it is very reliable. Those were denied. The trees fell down during the storm, crushing people's houses. And so I think that could turn into a problem. And I hope that, you know, we're going to have to navigate those sort of issues as cases happen. But I just want to put that on your radar now, because a couple of the cities are not particularly sympathetic in what they did, as I understand it. And they are in counties where a jury would not be sympathetic to that city. And that's how law gets made that impacts the rest of us. So hopefully we can maintain our sovereign immunity as best as we can. But those are a couple of legal issues that I see on the horizon. The final one is that both the House and the Senate have passed Governor Kotek's housing bills. As I understand it, those have not been signed by the governor yet, but I would be surprised if they weren't. And so I think that there's some clarifications as far as UGB expansions, as well as land swaps. And I'll make sure to read the final versions of those and have a summary for you at our next council meeting, assuming they get signed by the governor.
Thank you, Peter. All right. Chad,
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
and if you can't talk, that's all right. We can just skip you and have you cough the rest of the time.
Thank you very much. So I've got a couple of updates on the city administrator report. Code enforcement's been going really well. My team in the planning department, Garrett's assistant, Angelina, and my building code official, we've been really getting in front of some issues as they come up, solving those issues before they get to court. And that team is doing really well. We've resolved some business license issues, still working on one or two of those. We've closed some illegal vegetation cases. We're opening up a few more of those and trying to get those taken care of, making sure that people are taking care of their vacant lots. And today came in an 8-foot fence that was constructed, should be 6 foot, but the owner and the construction folks are working with us. So we're getting that repaired. Under Public Works was funds requested coming in for a skid steer unit. Sorry, it's not a skid steer unit, it's a skid unit that we're working on. A skid unit is a unit for our water treatment facility to actually clean and deliver our water to the residents of Girard. And we are looking at a project that would enable us to do more maintenance, more cleaning, and potentially make more water as well. And so we'll be presenting that to you here upcoming soon. Likely everything's coming together, and we'll be discussing that again next month. The Public Works has also been very busy over the last week. We had a lot of rain, and that rain showed up in places that people weren't used to. We do have a lot of new people in town that weren't quite understanding of the flooding that can occur here occasionally. And we had some of that. Bud's Campground, the backside of that did flood. We have flooding that's going on at our phone system that's down on the Pacific Way near the school. And you've seen what's going on in the school. There's our Public Works director and employees have gone up and down, followed all the water flows, looking for beaver dams or other obstructions, but it just turns out that this is a lot of rain. The aquifer recharge has come up, and so the water is sitting in places where people aren't quite accustomed. So far, there hasn't been any major damage for anyone, and we have assured our systems are moving water as best that they can under the circumstances. But just be aware, when we get a lot of rain, that's going to be an issue that we're going to have to work with. 4th of July update. With Councilor Gould's assistance, we've been meeting with Oregon State Parks. The discussions have been around the 4th of July, the impacts of the 4th of July, and how we can mitigate as many of those impacts as possible. This is a new meeting that we've been having. We haven't approached state parks before, and we've had 2 meetings with them now. And of course, a lot of the issues that are coming out are availability of people, availability of funds, and how they can help assist kind of keep things more organized down on the beach, especially when it comes to illegal fireworks, garbage, things like that. So I want to let the council know that we are meeting with them, but also along with that is Chief Como, Fire Chief Como, and I are talking to our local fire chiefs here on either side, Warrenton and Seaside, and the county emergency manager is in on this as well. We're gonna sit down and have some meetings and discuss the 4th of July as it happens to our communities, what we can do to improve, but also to go through a process of actually setting up emergency operations centers for the 4th of July and better coordinate between all the fire departments, police departments, Oregon State Parks, and the other responding units such as state police and the county. So those conversations are happening, and the goal of those are to improve our work in those areas, to improve getting ahead of the garbage, getting ahead of the illegal fireworks, and making sure that we have enough people or more people anyway to help assist in that program. So there'll be more to report, but those things are happening. Monday, I just happened to go on the Great Streets Program website at ODOT. I know not many of you probably do, but I was pretty excited to do so. The Great Streets Program is part of our update on the highway project with all the ideas the council, the residents of Gearhart, the planning commission came up with for potentially redoing parts of the highway on their website. So I've got good news and bad news. The good news is projects selected for the Great Street funding, Gearhart was number 4 of 4. So 4 out of 4. They awarded to 4 different projects. One was Portland North Lombard Street. One was 3 other communities, Hermiston and or 2 other communities in Hermiston. Gearhart Highway was shown as one of them being selected for funding. Well, that same day I got an email from the ODOT. And they said, yes, but unfortunately what we found is that we had $65 million to do the project. The first 3 projects with the price increases are now taking 64, so we were kicked off. We were just close. So they fought for us. They tried to get us up a little bit higher. We scored 4 out of all of the grants that were submitted. So this particular round, we're not eligible for. But the next round, I don't know when that is coming through, but I'll find out some more information about that. But I don't have a lot of information for you at this time. This week.
Question. So I was just up in Astoria and I don't know if you've been up there recently, but they re-striped. So there's a center lane where there didn't used to be.
Yes.
Why can't we just at least do that?
That's similar to one of the ideas that we have, and that was Chief Bowman's point of contention the entire time was why can't we just do something simple by moving the lines? ODOT made things sound a little bit more complicated than that, but they also want to, part of the funding for this is to redo the Pacific Way light and the access for ADA and the sidewalks at the Pacific Way site. So our project is more expensive than that, so they do have to go for more funding. I'll be in touch with them. Maybe you can assist me with that. We have some conversations, but.
I'll be happy to. Who paid for the Astoria? Do you know?
No, I don't.
So
They already had sidewalks up.
Well, even with or without sidewalks, we had different scenarios where it would be with sidewalks, without sidewalks, with more room for pedestrians and bikes. There was 4 or 5 different options that we had in there. This was rolled up for a project between 5th Street and Pacific Way. And I don't know exactly how that happened, but the funding, the costs are what is really taking the funding for a loop here. Where they were going to do 4 projects at 66 million or 65 million, they were only able to do 3.
You know, but it just doesn't seem, and maybe I'm naive, it doesn't seem like re-striking out here would cost that much. So.
Yeah, things with the highway, no doubt, are getting more complicated than what you think sometimes. The other issue that we have on the highway, as you notice, and I talked about earlier, is the flooding. There were some pretty serious puddles on that highway this week, and last week, and it was dangerous, and so that's something that they have to accomplish as well. And I think that brings the price up pretty high. So I'll get more information and report more as I know. That is that. It looks like we talked about recreational immunity.
I have a question about.
That's what I have this one. Yes, ma'am.
So we had talked at one point, this is one of our unfinished business things, about redoing the signage and making it all coherent in our city. So my question is, if we're gonna put these recreational signs up that Peter was talking about, are we waiting until we get the signage decided, or are we putting them up immediately, or?
We're working on that now. We're gonna put them up sooner than later. We're gonna design the signs similar to the ones the tennis courts are designed in, green and white. To keep them park-like, and without drawing too much attention while drawing attention. But I think, we decided that we were gonna wait, and not wait on those signs, and so that design is being done now.
That was one of my questions I had written down, is that several meetings ago, there were people who volunteered to be on the sign committee. Is that still feasible? Is it a viable committee at this point?
Can I answer that?
Yes, please.
Because the mayor asked me to head that up, and I have, one of the people that volunteered got a hold of us right away and said, yeah, I'm very interested in that. And I think without naming her, she's a great resource, and I think that I would really value her input. She knows a lot about signs, and especially she's been a sign maker in the area. However, she asked for a little bit of patience because she's tied up in some other personal things and then she'll, when she's ready, I'm gonna put it out and see if we can get some more participants in it. And then at that point, we'll have some conversations and let the public know, hey, let's sit down, let's have a cup of coffee and let's talk about, what do we want, do time to do some kind of branding or identity for your garden for our signs and have them all consistent.
Awesome, thank you.
All right,
Wait,
all right.
you're not done, are you?
Yeah, I just skipped over a few things. Is there something you're interested in talking about?
Oh, no, I mean, you had other things listed, and
Uh,
I'm sorry, I was following down the lists.
yes, I'm sorry. So, staff administration, we also have elections approaching. So we have the May primary and we don't have anything on the ballot as per our last meeting. November general election, we've got 3 positions with expiring terms, Mayor Smith, Councilor Reed, and Councilor Sharon. So those will be available to work through the city here soon. We've been through multiple meetings over the last couple of weeks. It's been very, very busy. Council special meetings, town halls, planning commissions, culvert mediation meeting is something that we're working on. We're gonna end up in mediation for the culvert that's on Gerhart Loop. Talking about who is responsible for that culvert that has failed. That in our opinion is not the city of Gerhart's culvert, nor is it our responsibility, nor do we install it, nor do we maintain it. But we're still having to go through this process. We'll see how that ends up.
You lived it.
Did I?
As soon as they put gravel on that one, was the front yard. You guys bought it.
Yeah, and that's been going on for over 20 years. We are gonna start getting back up on water conservation now that the season is coming. We have water conservation ideas for posting and trying to save on that. Grants, nothing new to report except for the recreational immunity signs will be paid for with a $5,000 grant that Christie had written and gotten. So that's good news. She jumped right on that and got that money. Mayor Dale, we talked about that, and tentatively scheduled for the Gerhart cleanup day is April 20th. 8 AM to 11 AM, but we'll have more to report.
That's 420.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to. I don't think we're celebrating that unless you like.
I do have a question, where are we at on getting more water rights, where's that?
That's coming up here in this,
Okay.
in this meeting here in just a little bit, but yes, we are moving forward.
Any other questions? All right, moving on. Going to visitors. Bench committee.
Okay, I have a report for the bench committee unless they'd like to start off with anything.
This
I can
is,
get that started.
no, we're waiting on you.
All right, so the Gearhart, I'm gonna read right off the synopsis here. The Gearhart Bench Committee requested final approval and direction from the council on the placement of the new benches and the confirmation of existing benches, locations additionally. Additionally, the committee seeks authorization for city staff to submit a permit application to Oregon Parks for both new and existing benches that are affected by the statutory vegetation line, otherwise known as the SVL. As directed by Oregon Parks guidelines, the provided maps highlighted 6 benches encompassing both 3 new and 3 existing. Actually, there's more than that. Within a specified red box area that require undergoing the permit process and approval by OPRD Real Estate Services. Without these permits, no new benches can be added, and the current ones may have needed to be removed in that specific zone in front of the vegetation line. The maps also detail all current and planned bench locations. The committee urges the council to approve these locations, enabling the city staff to order new benches based on prior council decisions. Secure permits for those impacted by the SVL, and actually, we're gonna reverse that. Secure permits first, then buy benches. And manage the restoration of existing benches. Furthermore, the city will also request permits to relocate benches that were previously placed out but now have obstructed views due to growth of dunes. So this project with the maps that are on the pages, I'm sorry that I did not include the legend for these maps. But as you look at the maps, the yellow benches are new benches. The blue benches are existing benches. There is a box down below in those 6 benches on the lower end of the part, the map, on the first map. The benches that are all the way up near the Windward condos and the ones that are near the Pacific Way Trail will also need to be included, we found, in the permitting process. So we went ahead and talked to OPRD multiple times, told them about our situation. They have told us to go through this process to apply for these benches to be out there and to apply for the new bench locations. They seemed positive on the whole project. So after tonight, if the city council agrees that these new yellow benches out on the beach side are appropriate and you'd like us to move forward with them, we will continue to fill out the permit application for all of those benches and take this through a process that, according to OPRD, should not take very long. Then after we get that process finished and we have approval for moving the benches, then we will order the benches from Barco, who was one of the purveyors that we had, and I think Sharon helped us with. And I had made contact with the lady at Barco, and we are talking about the pricing again and the availability for benches. Things are looking good there. And so the next move after you folks approve, just through a consensus, we will submit these requests for permit to move the benches. In this, it's not just putting new benches out and maintaining our old ones. Our first attempt is to go ahead and get these placed up on top of the dunes to move forward because of the accretion. And many of these benches do not have any views left over. So our first goal is to have the benches move forward and then install new benches out there. The volunteers of the committee have come up with some proposals for how that will be paid for through donations for folks. And those look good. And those, we would go through, no ordinance necessary for anything like that. That's more of a policy or a procedure with the city of Gerhart. So as long as OPRD is happy with this, hopefully by next month, we'll be able to give the thumbs up to begin purchasing the benches and get those started and put out. One of the items that we had to take care of with this is how much sand would we be moving, how would we install the benches? We provided them with all that information so they could have it. It's gonna need a little concrete out there, a little flattening out of some sand, not much moving. And they were pleased that it wasn't as much construction as what they initially thought. So that's what I have to report. What the staff is looking for is a consensus that we go ahead with the benches on the beach side.
Have you come up with a proposed price for these benches yet, per bench?
We're close. Letitia, I think her name is Letitia. Letitia, she's great, and we get to go ahead and we go to order, that's when we'll get the pricing. But she did say that the pricing has not changed that much, not as much as she thought.
Okay.
Okay, so question, so that's for the big bench. There, the more robust bench, that's what you're talking about for out there. And what are we gonna do about these more in town? Where are we at with that?
That is something, again, that the city council needs to consider. If they approve all of these bench locations, these are all the yellow benches that are on that page one. We're estimating somewhere around $15,000 to $20,000 for this project. If the council approves and wants to start placing the benches around here, we can get started on that.
Right, but we won't be paying the bulk of it. People who want the benches for themselves or their families will be paying that, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And so we'll put the money aside, purchase the benches, and then be reimbursed.
Okay, can I ask you where the SDL is?
Yeah, I can show you. Christy, may I get, may I get the ability to share my screen? It'll take me just a moment here.
On your laptop?
Yes, please.
Okay, you gotta join the meeting first, and then I'll let you in.
Copy that. All right, thank you, Christy.
Can I say something while we're waiting for Christie to do this?
There we got it. 17 easy steps, yes. All right, so here is the beaches here. Let's see if I can do a better job. That's showing our water lines and fire hydrants if you're interested. So Gerhart, south part of Gerhart, north part of Gerhart Ocean. The state vegetation line is this line right here. That goes up to the top of the dunes. This state vegetation line that comes back and comes into this area right here.
Chad, do you think that's approximately the Birdie Beach Trail?
It's almost exactly the Bird Beach, almost. There's a few places where it was off a little bit.
Thanks a lot for that.
And the other thing that kind of takes this is the oceanfront building line. I won't get into that too much, but in the oceanfront building line is tucked right up against all the houses here in Gerhart. And nothing can really be built beyond that into the dunes other than sand fencing and some other repair work. So that's why this bench situation in front of this vegetation line and in front of the oceanfront building line is a bit of a permitting process.
Any other questions for Chad on this? Anyone want to give us a motion?
I have a comment.
Okay,
I see that, there's, 2, 4, 5, there's 5 new benches from Leslie Miller Park down to the Ridge Path. Right now, there's 18 benches from Leslie Miller Park to the one across the street. 18.
18 between there and there?
18 between this one out here on the Ridge Path up to Leslie Miller Park. 18. Do we really need any more benches in Gerhart? If people want to have their families memorialized, let's take one of these parks, put up a billboard, put a roof over the top of it, have them go and get a plaque, stick a bench in front of it, and have them go down to the plaque maker down here, like seeing achievement, and then give it to the city, and the public works boys can put it up. I don't think, I mean, most of these benches in Gerhart aren't even used. The other thing I'll have to say is the existing ones that are out on the ocean front there. I think that the families whose names are on the bench should have to contribute $600 or $700 a year for maintenance. Otherwise, the names come on. Why should we taxpayers have to go about maintaining the benches that were put out there, that were paid for by the family, but they didn't pay the city? They paid the bench manufacturer.
Well,
And then those manufacturers, Jim Gilbaugh and Beal, were the ones that placed the benches out.
those benches, well, to answer your question, the city received over, I believe, 28
I think we
people
got
that called,
25 or
25 people that called and asked if they could have a bench.
Then have them put their names on that billboard as one of my parks.
Nobody's called to ask if they could have a plaque.
Well,
They've asked if they could have a bench.
okay, then stick the bench there in front of it and then put the names behind the bench,
Thank you for your comment.
okay? I mean, I've asked my cousins, you know, Tom McCall's family, the one that's down at the end of 7th Street there, if they would be willing to donate $600 a year to the city of Gerhart to maintain their bench, and they said absolutely. I think that we ought to, I think that as a council, I think that we need to make a resolution or something like that to request to people to maintain their own benches.
We're building that into the new bench, application form. We're building a maintenance fee into that. What did we say? I forget what we said previously.
Yes, for an annual fee.
We got 3 guys in the public works. There's all kinds of stuff that they need to do inside this city here, rather than go on down there with a weed whacker or something like that. Like, we're talking about liability. Okay? Somebody goes down there, trips, falls down into the concrete armrest or something like that, cracks their head open because they tripped on the dune grass.
Well, maybe
Right,
those
so just a
people.
minute. Okay,
Maybe they shouldn't.
you think that the 3 guys in this city, I mean, it would take them all summer long to go down there, mow the grass in and around those benches and everything like that, pressure wash them, oil them, and to maintain them.
These benches don't need to be oiled.
I'm talking about the existing ones right now.
Well, the city did receive funding to maintain and repair.
I understand that, you know, that was very generous of the woman.
And the way that we had talked about the policy, these benches, when we say annual maintenance, it's once a year that they will be cleaned. Just once a year. They're not gonna, Public Works is not gonna go out there every 3 months and do it.
Every single one of these streets, every single one of these blue dots along this front right here has got at least 2 benches on it. All these around here on the estuary, apart from the one in front of Alan's house, has got 2 benches on it. Okay, all these here require them to get a vehicle with a pressure washer. Okay, and a water wagon or something like that down there, along with, you know, I say we charge for that and contract it out. I mean, have you guys even thought about doing that?
We've thought about very many things on this.
Okay, and have you thought about what the cost is in order to maintain those and how the three people over here at Public Works, with everything else that they have to do in this city, that they're going to be able to afford to do that on a yearly basis?
Pretty much.
God, guess I gotta get a job with Public Works.
There you go. No, but thank you for your comment.
All right. I'm still waiting for a motion. If you want to go ahead with this.
Okay, I move that council approves authorization for city staff to submit a permit application to Oregon Parks for benches.
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any more discussion?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're answering his question and saying, yes, you have thought about that, and that's gonna be part of when you sign for a bench, you're gonna be notified at that point that you will be required to maintain it, it's gonna be maintained once a year.
Once a year.
And it doesn't have to be our public works guys, if we give some money and we could give this contract to somebody else, sure, we can pay somebody else, okay.
Any other, I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry. One other thing with recreational immunity being a problem, somebody trips over one of these benches, do we have any problems, Peter?
I mean, really for us to have a problem, there would need to be a dangerous condition and we would need to be aware of the dangerous condition and do nothing. And then
I just gave you one, Peter.
I think that if you're asking me if that's what's keeping me up at night, it's not. Like, there are a lot of other things I would be worried about before we got to like slip and fall close to a bench. If the bench had was warped so it had spikes on it or something like that, and someone told us and then we just didn't do anything about it, and then someone impaled themselves on it, yeah, I would be pretty concerned about that. So I think maintenance, and if we become aware of a problem, we need to demonstrate that we're responding to it.
So is there any way that we, because I get both sides of this argument here. I mean, we can't continue to just stick benches anywhere and everywhere that, that nothing's moving. We have other issues, we might end up redesigning this area down here, benches might be an issue if we're putting them everywhere. But yeah, on the other hand, we have a lot of people that have been on this list for a very long time who have not been told no, and they have some expectations that I think at this point, I mean, have there been people on the
Well,
list?
the expectations, yes, the list has been old and it's been there for a long time, over 12 or 13 years now. But when we took the information from everybody and we put a date on for the request, what their request was, and we told them if a bench came available, they would be in that line and we would go down the order in which they had requested it. And let's say we do a new park, we have 2 benches, we go to position 2 and 3, and then we go ahead and offer them that opportunity. If they take it, great. If not, we go down to the next list. So that was the way that it was reported. Then we gave into, now that we have this list, we have a bench committee. It was to buy benches and they get everybody on that list, one of their benches, or at least the opportunity to get a bench and to move forward with placing them around town, because there was over 20 people on that list. So they picked 20 or so spots that the benches would be a good placement, according to them, walking around town and all that, some nice spots. And so then we went from, okay, well, one at a time as they came available to all the benches now.
Okay. So, I mean, to get to Preston's point, at what point do we say, okay, this is enough, we can't continue to do more benches in the future? At what point do we say, okay, we're gonna do a sign? Is it after this? Have you guys discussed that? Was there?
We've actually discussed that because there are some towns on the East Coast that did have to put a moratorium on their benches. They said this bench, no more. And so, yes, the bench committee's thought about that as well. And although we have not discussed the number of new benches, we do want to accommodate the people who are on the list.
Right.
And the bench committee called those people, you know, some of them were on there like for 12 years, they were still interested in having a bench. And the ones that I talked to that said I'm taking me off the list is because they've moved. They don't live in Deerpark anymore, but no, so I think almost of the 25, and correct me if I'm wrong, about 20 still want a bench. Yeah, at least.
You know, let's take a walk down the prom and see that. Is that what we want our oceanfront looking like? Is that what we want, you know, Pacific Way looking like? Just walk down the prom and seaside.
Well, I mean, I guess the alternative would be to call these people and say, no, you can't have a bench.
Or to put up a billboard or whatever it is on one of the parks, put a bench in front of it, and they can have their name on the awning roof.
Do you wanna call all of them or? Are you?
Well, I'll call
Oh, okay.
them. Okay, give me a list.
Here was my idea. So I had an alternative idea. Kind of in keeping with what you're saying, actually. I said, why not, when we design whatever we're gonna do for Centennial, why not have, and Boulder, Colorado has this, where I'm from. Tiles, handmade tiles, gorgeous. And you could have any inscription on that tile, any kind of decoration on the tile, and we could have a seating area that is made, the back of the seating area is made of those tiles. That was my suggestion.
That's fine.
You like it?
We did it in front of the fire department.
Yeah.
With the bricks,
Exactly.
you know? I mean, why pollute the city? Why pollute the city with any more benches? Let's figure out how we can all get them in one spot, you know?
There's a couple of places around here. I walk this city all the time. Almost every single day I walk this city because I have a dog. And there's a couple places that I just say to myself, boy, if I was tired, I would really like to be able to sit down and just rest for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, wherever I am. And so there's a few places, Preston, that I would.
I can see down, Sharon, I can see down here, you know, where they extended the ridge path,
Yes,
okay, on the east side. I can see adding some benches there.
yeah.
Okay, and I can see North Gun Club Road,
Yes.
right? Where people walk all the way down
Yes.
Cottage Avenue and then they turn to go around
Right.
the loop. Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
those places there, but I can't see all these here on Pacific Way. And I sure in heck can't see them out here on the dune front.
We can,
Well, for clarification, the ones on Pacific Way, some of those are in the tennis court area?
The purple that are using the map are benches that exist in the tennis courts. The red that's in the, are benches that exist in the, Leslie Miller Park. The yellow are new, are benches placement to be considered. There's a few in the purple that we would like to replace as well, of course, and we'll work that project out.
What are the black ones?
The black ones are, park, picnic benches.
Oh, so the majority of the new benches that you're proposing, there's a few out there on the ocean, which we don't even know that we'll be able to get, we have to get a permit for those. And then you have some that are clustered in the park, which is appropriate, you want to have them in the park. There's some in areas where we've not had them before and legitimately, we do have an aging community or a lot of retirees here who have complained to us in the past, like when we close the bathrooms and they need places to stop. So I would give you a second for this and then we go for it, but yeah, I would say in the future, I would not want to increase the number of benches, no, I'm requesting on that. I would say an alternative solution in the future, so I'll give you a second on your motion to approve the bench committee's request and direct staff to order the necessary benches, apply for the part and proceed with existing bench restoration.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against?
No.
Okay, passes.
Thank you.
That gives us what we need to get to.
Okay. Public communication, written and oral. We have a letter from Deb Papadopoulos on owner's rep. We have a Pete and Vivian. I think that's Thaddeus. Dattyes. And that's asking us not to commit to
Resolution.
a resolution. Thank you. I'm sorry, I lost the word there for a second. We also have action alert for running, walking and biking, the SB 1576 immunity bill that they have in the legislature. And the other one is a request by Recology, who was attacked. What does they call it?
Cyber attack.
Cyber attack, and they're asking for a extension on their rate increase for this year because they still have not recovered from the attack on their hardware, their infrastructure.
Yeah, their computer infrastructure for their entire companies.
Wow. And so by consensus, Peter, or do we need a motion to extend their
Rate review process.
thank you, rate review process?
I think a motion would probably be the safest course to take.
Okay, does anyone want to give me a motion on extending their rate review process?
I'll give you a motion to extend Recology's request to extend the request for rate review.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Discussion.
any discussion?
Is that gonna affect IU? Okay.
The rate request would only be against, or not against, but it would be the customers would have to pay more. Eventually, if that's what they call for.
Potentially for a brush bin as well, but it's been minor.
Right. Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, pass. Moving on, we have no one signed up for talking. We have no one who emailed in. So, oral public comment, anyone wishing to address the city council concerning items of interest not on the agenda may do so at this time. All remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Requests to comment electronically must be submitted by email to the city recorder at info@cityofgerhart.com no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting. In-person attendees wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to the meeting.
I think the sign. Late, sorry.
You're late. You didn't sign in.
I apologize, I had a family emergency.
All right, then. I'll let you.
Okay, was there anybody else?
No, nobody else signed up.
Go ahead.
I would like to speak, but I just forgot to sign in. Well, they.
Okay, well,
We're good.
that's tough on me.
That's the reason you're sitting at the back of the class.
That's right.
All right, Shannon, go ahead. You got 5 minutes.
All right, thank you, sir. Shannon Smith, 774 Pacific Way, nice town, Gerhart. Couple things. One, I attended the Seaside meeting last week, the 2050 meeting they had, vision for 2050 and plans for Seaside. I of course love my town. It was a fascinating meeting, 100 and some people were there, many, many tables, facilitated by a consulting group. They talked about, again, things they surveyed the community for, key priorities, housing, economics, environment, there were several more. But each table discussed the different topics, gave the group ideas. Everybody participated that wanted to, several council members were there. It was great. And I think it was a nice way to get open and sharing feedback, and people felt engaged in their city. So that was one. Number two, what I thought was cool about that meeting was they talked about culture and vision. How do we feel about our town? How do we want to have others feel when they come and see it? What would we like in 20 years that we don't have now? And I thought it was very forward thinking. It had this nice sense of we're part of what we're going to plan for our future of our city. So just a suggestion that we attempt and try something like that here as well. And I know town halls may be that kind of forum, but this was a little bit more focused broadly. Number two, I continue to talk to people around the area about the Estuary Research Reserve, all the way up to many state people now, as well as state lands, and getting more and more participation, which is great. In Seaside, I talked to both Tia and Tom Horning and several other people with the city that said, keep us posted, we'd like to find out more as well. In that vein, I talked to also state lands folks about concerns about setbacks on building along our creek, Neocoxie, especially with our lovely Sitka spruce trees of 300 plus years old. So I brought another great handout for you guys that has the aquatic resources special concern information on the back about this ancient forest. And then the pictures of the front give you again a picture of the barn taken in probably 1935. And then with the overlay of our same Sitka spruce forest back here. And when I sent this to the one state lands guy, he said, no, most of those trees would have fallen down in that earthquake back in 1700. But he said many of those trees now would have been fairly small, so they probably lasted. So we probably have 400-year-old trees. He said the fact that they've lasted all that time, protected by the dune, makes them absolutely unique. They're gonna look again at the wetland overlay, especially to where certain maps consider the high tide line for the highest tide for our creek. The maps they have marking that are old. So I asked them, can we expedite the new maps being done? And can we expedite particularly our section of creek, since this is really special and at risk? And several folks talking to said it's probably not a good idea to build there. Now, no one official, but said I again reiterate, it's a pretty challenging place to have home sites. There's many, many reasons to protect it. The new thing from state lands is they're rewriting many of their information, their rules and regulations, or I should say their rules, to what they call it. They said to make everything objective and clear. So I said, okay, define objective. They said, well, we're going to take it apart piece by piece. So they're looking for clarity in the language, clarity in how they try to offer that information, make it simple for the public, as well as objective, whatever that is for the
45 seconds.
for the role. They've offered to stay in touch with us. The state lands person we had for our area has moved to forestry, so we have a new person taking over. The gal I spoke with today is one of the policymakers for particularly wetlands protection, the fill removal standards, and we talked at length about our special forests. So we've got support in state lands to do more to make sure it's preserved and really here for the next 100 years. So thank you. I'll keep you updates as I get more about the estuary reserve. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay. The what? I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
Jeff Robert, please.
Robert Lee, as soon as I. Are you gonna speak, Robert?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Just your name and your address, please, sir.
627 Robert Lee, 627-8 here. And I apologize for not signing in, but. If I'd known you were gonna speak about the benches, I probably would have stopped and signed in. But I'm sort of concurring with Preston Deverell, although I hate to admit that. But if you walk down,
If you're talking about the benches that's on our agenda, that is not a topic that is open for you to discuss. This is strictly
okay,
anything that is not on the agenda. I'm sorry, Robert, but that's
that's okay.
okay.
Yep.
All right. Anybody else? All right. We're gonna move on from public communication to ordinances and resolutions, which we have none. And now we'll go to old business, the OLCC license renewal update. And Chad, are you going to give us a little read on this?
Sure, I'll summarize it for you, Mayor. So last month, Councilor Dana asked a question that the staff could not answer. The question was on the renewals for a couple of the different folks that were applying for OLCC licensing. We contacted OLCC and talked to them about this issue, and they gave us the following response. And this was in regards to trade names that were one of the issue, the name that they have underneath their application versus what the business is named now. And then the other is about basically surrendering or renewing the license. OLCC came back and told us that trade name changes wouldn't be something that necessarily holds up a renewal. Councilor Dana was asking if the trade name should be correct on that application process. We request that they inform us, this is OLCC, request that they inform us of the change so that we can update our records. I can let renewals know to include a change of info packet with their renewal notification for the Gearhart Ocean Inn. As for the business that is closed, and I believe this was Good Times, they should inform us about surrendering their license, but often we'll just let it lapse. So if you find a business is closed in your area, but it's still listed on the license is active, please reach out to our compliance division, alcohol@oregon.gov, to inform them, and they can go check out the location and take it from there. Staff is waiting for April 1st to confirm Good Times did in fact let the license lapse. Then all is well. We should only take the compliance division route if it does not show that it was lapsed. So the main change is going to happen eventually. And the compliance division, I don't believe Good Times is re-upping the license, so that'll fade away.
Thank you for looking into that.
Yeah, no, that was good. We didn't know the answer to that question, so it was a good exercise for us. And thank you, Christy, for doing that.
All right, so there's nothing to do on that.
Nothing to do, no.
All right, moving on to new business. And budget committee appointments. I've been told the recommended way to do this is to get a motion to individually name an applicant. So we can appoint them to the budget committee, each and every one gets this motion. So. We have 3 positions, we have 3 applicants. If someone would give me a motion on Paulina Cochran.
I'll give you a motion to appoint Paulina Cochran.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, Paulina, you're on. Someone give me a motion for Jennifer Gray.
I'll give you a motion to appoint Jennifer Gray.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Jennifer. And a motion for Robert Lee.
I'll give you a motion to appoint Robert Lee.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, everyone is appointed who has applied. Great job for applying, people. Thank you very much.
Applying and hope yes you.
Can't believe it's, that's, yeah, it's just 3 hours of meetings. All right, Red Cross proclamation. Will you read the synopsis, Chad?
The city was contacted by Janae Pearson Motion, county volunteer liaison for the American Red Cross Cascades region, to request that March 2024 be declared American Red Cross Month. A form of proclamation was attached for consideration. And we actually did make a small letter change to the proclamation on the sheet that you were handed in front of you. It was to remove.
It was the name of her region right before the word today.
It was like an artifact from a boilerplate that we removed. It just was naming her region in a weird fashion, but the declaration is correct now.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'm about to sound like a lawyer.
Good.
So I read this, and maybe I didn't read it correctly. I read this to suggest that we were suggesting that people should donate to the Red Cross. And in the past, we have recognized, our proclamations have recognized organizations or issues, but have not included support of per se, not included a suggestion to support those organizations. And so I just wanted to flag that. This to me read differently than other proclamations that we would normally process and do.
So would you encourage me to drop the line out, the last line of now therefore, I encourage all citizens of Gerhart to reach out and support. It's the humanitarian mission. Is that the line that makes you think they're asking for a donation?
Yeah, I read that, and then there's a lot there. This is just, I don't know if it's boilerplate that they created or what. It's Gerhart specific, sort of, but it's not. And it in my mind read like advocacy for that organization itself versus for a issue such as the donation of blood. So I don't know. And again, maybe I've just been spending too much time in litigation. But yeah, this is
Okay, so if I drop that line, what about the issue of bringing religion into the city? Because in the year of our Lord.
Yeah,
requires me to.
There are a lot of unusual things about this proclamation. And normally I don't read this is on me because I review the packet and I read a lot of stuff, but I don't usually read the proclamations. So maybe we could just proclaim March is Red Cross Month and leave it at that.
Sounds good to me.
Is that all right with the council?
Yes.
Yes. So do we need a motion?
You just have to proclaim it.
By motion, okay, I'm gonna say that I proclaim the American Red Cross Month 2024 as April.
Is it April or March?
I believe it's supposed to be April, isn't it?
March.
March, good grief, thank you, Preston. Okay, I proclaim that March is Red Cross Month. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Moving on. Request for an RFP approval, owner's representative, Chad.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The city of Gerhart is launching a project to explore the construction of a new public safety building to replace the outdated and seismically unsuitable 1958 fire station, aiming to serve both the fire and police services more effectively. The project emphasizes community engagement to select an appropriate location. Consider the challenges of the current site and the necessity to involve public feedback in the decision-making process. Key project goals include replacing the old fire station structure to mitigate earthquake risks, removing hazardous materials, enhancing operational capacity and facilities for both fire and police departments, and addressing the need based on community growth and service demand. The project will involve hiring an owner's representative to oversee public engagement, develop conceptual plans, conduct a needs assessment, comply with state laws for building in tsunami zones and earthquake zones, and manage site evaluations. This role also includes organizing public meetings, developing a community engagement strategy, and finalizing the financial plan with extensive information shared through the city's website and social media. The initiative aims to create a modern, resilient public safety facility that ensures the long-term safety and well-being of Gerhardt's residents, underpinning by those through the planning community involvement and expert advice. Your options are to approve the attached RFP, seeking the owner's representative services, or take another action. And staff, of course, would recommend, we've had discussions about this, proceeding with the RFP as plans. What our intention is that the RFP would go out, people would bid on that, and then the staff would bring back those bids for approval to the city council. There's options for us to do interviews if we need to. There have been a few changes made to the draft. I used the cities who's currently going through this process. I used their information as a template. They're currently using an owner's representative. So in the first under introduction, I'm sorry, I don't have my changes. Christy, I'm going to need your help here, I think. I don't have the new version here in front of me.
Is this it?
Yeah, thank you, man. Make sure that they're tracked.
So we're going to the other draft that's on the table?
Yes, yes, some very minor changes were made. Christy, do you still have my notes?
I'm digging in my recycle bin. Would you like me to just read them aloud?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
In the introduction, Chad, you got third line down, it says the project is approximately 1/3 of an acre portion of an acre parcel located on the west side of Pacific Bay.
Yeah, sorry, that is been
The
removed.
north side.
So this is the new one. Also in there, it said City Hall instead of public safety building. So we changed that to say public safety building. We need to strike the site of the project is approximately 1/3 acre on the west side of Pacific Way in downtown Gerhardt.
Okay, so let's back up and can you take us just quickly page by page through the?
Yeah, let me grab my note here real quick. I'll be right back.
You don't want me to read it?
Okay, so on page 2, we need to strike the location information and public safety building is what would remain.
So on page number 2 was where you were removing City Hall and putting in the public safety building
Correct.
in the first paragraph.
That's an artifact from the other piece, from what we used. See the things in this.
I don't have a city hall on my paper.
Right, so
No,
in the
your new
one
one
that you
is
saw
not.
earlier,
Let me rephrase this. I'm sorry.
Okay,
On page 2, we had City Hall instead of public safety building. We changed it to public safety.
okay, so you're talking then.
the new draft.
You got the new draft.
So we're gonna
Yeah.
go through the new draft.
Okay, so the new draft is the draft we're talking about.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have questions about
Okay.
some stuff that it's still in the new draft. That I can see.
Let's
Okay.
take it page by page.
What page do you want?
Page 3.
Okay, so we're good with page 2.
Okay, so page 3, the introduction, the site of the project is an approximate 1/3 acre portion on an acre parcel located blah blah to the north side of downtown here, or obviously not the west side.
Yeah, we need to strike that entire line.
Oh, we're gonna take it out.
Yes, because we do not have a location selected.
Okay, that's what I was gonna
Yeah,
ask.
yeah.
Because farther down, it says potential locations for a new public safety building. Then farther down, it says the exact location for the new public safety building has not been determined. And then I'm like, read those 3 things and I'm like,
Yeah,
what?
so take the first one out, please. So we'll remove that.
Any other changes, Chad?
On page 4. Under the top of the page, it says project needs and goals. The last bullet point in that section has been added to show that enhancing the accessibility, ensuring compliance with OSHA, NFPA, and local codes to prioritize safety and regulatory adherence. I don't see that.
It's on the new draft.
It's on the north.
Okay, that last bullet point was added.
Okay.
And that was more incorporate some of the requirements that we need. The next change is page 7. Under B, proposers representation. We added an S to the word understands. Very minor change. Okay. After that, page 14 is the last change. Under A, it now says general project expectations. We took out the word management. There's another section afterwards that gets more into the management, so that section is removed. That word was removed. That were the only changes that were made. Okay. So, thank you. Yes. That's. So the city staff feels strongly about moving forward with going out for this RFP. We think that it's the best way to handle the public safety discussion, ensuring that transparency and participation is key. These folks that do this work have, they have a lot of time and experience in working with cities. Primarily cities of this size. Larger cities will usually handle these sorts of things in-house. But smaller cities struggle with a lot of these type of projects. And this person would help us keep that on track and be a third party to assist us through the process. So we would like to come back to you next month with those proposals for approval. If we receive them, we anticipate we will.
How is this advertised?
This will be advertised in the trades, websites, on our blog, of course, and then we'll also be contacting as many people as we can and asking them to take a look and apply that are within that business. There are some local groups, there's a couple of local groups that are interested in this already, they've been watching.
Because they've got to get back to us by the end of this month.
It's gonna be close, but yeah, we anticipate.
We can put this on the blog.
Mhm. Yeah, it'll be on our website, and we'll make it we'll make sure that we put it on the blog. I'm not sure that we've done that in the past, but I've seen it on.
I mean, are we gonna give the public a chance to comment on this at all, or?
Well, they've had the chance since everything's come out in the agenda. The changes that we made were very minor and not major, so I was comfortable with making them. And they will get a chance again. Well, we're gonna have our chance again next month to potentially go through those RFPs and move forward with selecting one if you so choose.
At
So
firehouse?
no, this will be at the next month's public meeting, the city council meeting.
No. So can they comment on it at the next firehouse meeting, or?
Probably would be all right with me. You know, that could be part of the topics we're talking about, because in order to move ahead, we have to have this kind of person on board. They're gonna help facilitate the information and the everything else that we're asking them to do. All right. Anyone want to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the publishing of the RFP seeking owner's representation service to oversee the public safety building project.
Second for.
Second. That's James.
Okay, can I get a second? Any discussion?
Just one quick question. I'd like a legal opinion. And do any of the changes that we've made tonight constitute something that we should wait on?
I thought they were pretty minor changes. I think depending on the feedback that you get from the public going forward, you know, and we can continue to tweak things in minor ways. If we get applications from facilitators, going forward. So I'm not. I didn't hear anything tonight that made me uncomfortable.
Okay, and just so everybody's clear what we're talking about here, so we post the RFP, we give them a deadline. We look and see what proposals we receive. They get a time when they can ask us questions or ask for some clarification. And then eventually, after the interview and presentation, it still comes back to city council at the next meeting. It's not a done deal. We have the final say on which.
Correct, because we'll probably have to come to you with an ask for money out of the building reserve funds to accomplish it as well. This is going to be under $100,000, which is the threshold for budgeting, and for the way we handle it.
And if you don't like the applicant pool that you get, or if the proposals are something that doesn't resonate with you, it's not binding that you would hire anyone. I mean, you could absolutely say no. We would rather, take another course of action. Feedback that we had heard from the public was a desire to hear from the entire Gearhart community, not just Gearhart voters. And so that people would, people that aren't domiciled in Gearhart, but still very much care about Gearhart, that they want to be heard too. And I think this was an effort in order to do that, while getting as good information as we can. So one of the thoughts was that a skilled facilitator would be better able to gather that information and distill it for you as a council, to make sure that all of those different voices were kind of considered as part of the process. So that's kind of where this came out of.
That's it. So
That's it?
We've got a.
Thank you, Peter.
And a second.
Do we have a motion?
We already have it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm looking at something. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No? Okay. Moving on. Chad, will you read the synopsis for the
RFP for water rights?
I will, and your RFP has not been changed. The one that's attached to this synopsis is the one that we're presenting to you. Gearhart is advancing its initiative for water supply independence by seeking additional water rights, aiming to reduce reliance on Warrenton for peak demand support from July to October. The city engaged HGS Geosciences regarding the feasibility of water rights with the Oregon Water Resources Department to explore acquiring more water resources. Prompted by recent population growth straining the existing system, despite the challenges of summer demand, the study explored transferring rights within the North Coast Basin as a viable option. Initial discussions with the Oregon Water Resources Division revealed complexities in acquiring new rights, partly due to the water master's unfamiliarity with the region. Nevertheless, Gearhart has gathered enough data to pursue more water rights and is now planning to request council approval for a proposal solicitation aiming to fund the project with water reserve funds for increased supply capacity and independence. Your options are to motion to approve the publishing of the attached RFP water rights project or take another action. This is again the same scenario where we would come back to the city council with proposals and your permission to go forward with one of those proposals while asking for money from the reserve fund, water reserve fund in particular. Any questions?
I have a question for Peter on this RFP. Peter, I don't see where there's an indication that they have to have us in the queue with water Oregon Water Resource Board before the September or October deadline for when they're changing their rules. Is there any way we can include that so they know when they get this, that they have to at least get us in line with the approval process?
Yeah, we could add that.
Where would that be added? Because I would like to go ahead and get this passed, but I would like to know.
I think that what you could do is make a motion to pass this with the direction to staff to add that language. And then Chad and I can take a look. There's some recent litigation. I'm sure you're aware of that, Mayor, kind of around these issues. And I'd want to take a quick look at those pleadings too. And hopefully that would help inform exactly how we describe that language in there. But I think we could pass it tonight with the instruction that timeline information be added. And if folks that do this work indicate that that's some sort of barrier to them competing for the work, then we could always bring it back next month and have a further discussion. But I'm confident that tomorrow or Friday we would be able to distill that language down and then add it to this contract if that's your direction.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the publishing of the attached RFP for the water rights project with the added caveat that we have the verbiage for meeting the deadline before ORWD changes their rules in the fall. Is that good enough?
Yes. Fixed goalpost rule, we need to be in before they change.
Okay. We have a second. Is there any discussion?
I have discussion. Peter?
Yeah.
I'd like to know how come the water master for the state of Oregon over 18 years isn't familiar with this?
I think the particular water master is new. And was.
Over 18 years, I mean, the Oregon Water Department has realized that that we're being hamstrung.
And one of the new folks that does work at OWRD is, and they're new and they're up in that group, is familiar with Gearhart because they assisted Gearhart in the water rights as well.
So that goes well for us.
I think so. And then also to answer your question there, Carrie, is the people that I've been talking to, there's very few, water modeling groups that are out there. They are aware of that information. I think putting this in here is very wise. But their goal was to get moving on this.
Right.
To get around that.
But it's just something I noticed and I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that we need to make this deadline.
Yes.
Right, and what I've heard, it's somewhat anecdotally, but I have no reason to believe that it isn't true, is that the limitation on our water was not necessarily based on the water, but rather a compromise with our water provider who didn't want us to have our own water. And now that water provider is saying you better get your own water. So I would hope that when the state looks at that, they would understand that we need the water.
Right. Thank you. All right, so we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I'd like a vote, please. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any against? Thank you very much. Let's get that water flowing. All right. Peter, you're up next because Chad's gonna read about setting city precedent, and I understand you're prepared to lead the discussion.
Yeah. So I think that I got the question of how does the city create precedent? And then how much deference are different people given as they interpret code and other things, and I'm prepared to talk about both. And I'm going to start though with the issue of deference. And the answer is you as a city council, as elected city council members, are entitled to vast deference in your interpretation of your code. And I'll give you an example of that. When we were litigating our short-term rental, there was an argument made by the petitioner's lawyer that said that residential meant the main residence, or I would refer to as domicile. And because in our R1 neighborhood, that this person had pulled all of where all the people's property taxes went, and a majority of them went to an address other than Gearhart PO Box. And so was arguing that those weren't residences. And fortunately for us, and I am very grateful for our former Mayor Widdop, who during the proceedings on the record said, I interpret residence to mean the type of the type of living unit, and that the R1 residential is a detached single family home on a 10,000 square foot lot. So when it got time for our turn to do our pleadings, I said residential doesn't mean whether it's your domicile or primary home. It's the type of home and the character of the neighborhood. So like the density of the neighborhood, all those things. And Luba said, yeah. Now, if we had said something that was like clearly on its face wrong, that would be when you're not entitled to in deference and in interpretation of your code. And so you guys have a whole lot of latitude. I always ask that people kind of explain kind of their reasoning. That helps me with the pleadings. Your planning commission is entitled to a bit of deference, but far less than you are. They are, they are members of the community. They are appointed for that purpose. They get a little bit of deference, but nothing like the city council, because the city council is the legislative body of the city. We, the staff, are not entitled to any deference, which is why if I say that I interpret something in some manner, I ask that you as a city council, if you agree, please indicate that on the record. I very recently made the argument to Luba, it was a minor element of a case, but made the argument that if staff was delegated with the authority to make a determination, that they should be entitled to deference, because through that delegation, they received some of that from the legislative body. Luba said no, We won the case anyway, but as of today, even if it's delegated from council to staff, the LUBA is not going to give you that level of deference. The plaintiff in that case has appealed it to the Court of Appeals. I'm going to make the same argument there. So if things change, then I'll let you know. But again, that's why it's really important that you as a city council, particularly if we know something's going to be a legal issue, that you do what, Mayor Whittup did. It's possible that others on the city council don't agree with that interpretation, and certainly can say that and say what their interpretation is, and then it's just what a majority of you as a city council say. So that's an example of why we kind of process these things in the way that we do. If something has clear meaning in the code, then it's clear and objective meaning in the code, then it's less important to make those findings. If it's an ambiguous term, like an example of that would be like the Gearhart character. I feel like I have an idea about what people mean when they talk about the Gearhart character, but if that were an element of an application or something that, like in a conditional use, we would want you guys to go on the record and basically say what elements make that, whatever that application is, in that sort of thing. I once represented a jurisdiction, and in order to get a bonus floor for an apartment building, the standard was compelling architecture, which seems like really subjective. But because that was a conditional use versus it doesn't, something that could be like a bonus doesn't necessarily need to be clear and objective. But I did ask them if they found the architecture to be compelling to explain why. And my recollection is they did not find that architecture to be compelling, so we didn't even have to worry about it. The other way that we create precedent is through decisions. So if you approve something over and over again, and it's best not to use, this would be outside of like a land use context. Because with land use, because every piece of dirt is different, there might be factors that make it so, that just, and I'll go back to that compelling architecture. What was compelling architecture in the early 1960s would not have been compelling architecture in the early 90s in all likelihood, because tastes change and what people want changes. And then it kind of could come full circle again, where what was super compelling in the 90s might not be compelling anymore. So with land use things, there's less concern about precedent. Where we need to be careful with precedent is, let's say somebody has a leak in their water, and they can prove that they had a leak in the water, and that as soon as they became aware of it, and hopefully our new water meters would catch it, but as soon as they became aware, shut off the water, repaired the pipe, and appealed that to the city council. And if like 20 times in a row, you're like, yeah, as soon as they got alerted that this water was happening, they shut it off, brought in a plumber, fixed it, we're all good. If in each of those instances you said, those are the elements where we would waive 50% of their bill, or waive whatever the water waste was as compared to their average. If on like the 51st thing and the circumstances were identical and you said no, that's where we might have a problem. Because where we have a problem is through selective enforcement. So the idea is that we treat everybody equally to the extent that we can, recognizing that not all circumstances are going to be identical, and there might be reasons that people would decide to do one thing or another. If you're going against what you've traditionally done, What I would ask is that you explain why you're doing it. And one is because that is more fair to the applicant. But secondly, if someone brings up selective enforcement, then you'd say, no, this is why the circumstances are different. They became aware of the leak. They didn't immediately shut the water off. They didn't contact the city to shut it off. They waited 48 hours for the plumber to arrive. We believe X amount of water was lost as a result of that. That's why we don't think the circumstances that would merit reducing the bill by the 50% or whatever it is that you do traditionally. So those are, in my mind, precedent and kind of deference fit hand in hand, because the goal with both is to avoid litigation and also to be transparent to the public, and so that they would understand why you're doing what you're doing in one instance, but maybe not in another. As far as can staff set precedent, we really can't. We need you to tell us, like, if your priority is speeding, then you would say during your council goals, you know, police officers, we've seen a lot of speeding in whatever area. The radar camera little unit that we've got demonstrates that people are regularly going like 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. We hope that that would be an enforcement priority for our police going forward. And then at some point in the future, if they're no longer speeding, or if there's some other priority that's more important than that, then hopefully the council would, you know, in the goals kind of say, hey, this is our priority. Traditionally, fireworks on the 4th of July and some of the other activity that happens on the 4th of July has not per se been a council priority, and it is now. And so we're gonna figure out what additional steps we can take, whether it's police officers from other jurisdictions, whether it's asking Oregon State Troopers, whether it's sending letters to certain high schools in the Portland metro area and saying, hey, guess what? We're going to be citing people for whether it's minor in possession or whatever it is, you know, publicizing that in advance so that people know this is how we expect you to act when you're in the city of Gerhart. And if you don't act in that manner, we're bringing in resources so that we can perhaps better deal with it than it's been dealt with in the past. But again, that comes out of from you, the council. Sometimes staff has to make a decision out of necessity, because it's urgent and we don't have time, or we're a long ways from a council meeting. Most of the time when that happens, staff picks up the phone and gives me a call, heads up, kind of what do you think? And you know, I do my best in order to kind of do what I do with you, which is talk through legal risk and help those staffers make a decision. So so that's kind of precedent generally, and then what we don't do, and then any specific questions, because this precedent's pretty open-ended. So if you have anything in particular, I'd be happy to try and answer those questions.
Anyone have a question? Thank you, Peter. That was very informative. Sorry, the spider's been coming down from the ceiling. I can't.
Escapee.
Oh. You're not gonna get them.
I was here for you there. I was worried about the spider. I was like, I'll take care.
It could take you on, those thinking I don't mess with.
I put them outside, but he dropped right off. Yeah.
All right. Council concerns. Let's start with you, Rita.
Well, I wanna know what the status of our zip code is, Mr. Chad. And give me something, an update.
I don't have
I
that.
would. I really would.
I
Sorry,
do.
but
What? Wait.
actually I do. I just. Miss Christie, if you wouldn't mind.
It's
Yes, of
still,
course.
it's still in the hands of Ree Armitage. I think that's how you say his last name. He's the field representative of Senator Wyden. And he checked in with me a couple of months ago, but there's just no movement on it. But he was supposed to be putting a little reminder in the district managers. Yeah, that's about as much as he could tell me. Part of the problem though was the postmaster changes in Seaside. That was the
Oh, yeah.
big hang up was none of the emails and none of the updates were going anywhere. He wasn't even in the office. He was on a leave of absence and we didn't know that for a long time. So then he had a replacement come in and I don't even know if they've been apprised of the situation, but that's something that I could follow up on for the next meeting.
Thank you so much, Christie.
You're welcome.
That's it.
Preston.
I have none.
Sharon.
I know.
Dana.
Yeah, I have something that I would like us to talk about perhaps on the next meeting. But one of the things that's come up, some citizens have come up to me saying that they would like us to do a better job of communicating with them changes that we make, and I completely agree with that. If we're gonna change the rules and expect our citizens to comply with the rules, then they need to know clearly what the rules are when we've changed them. And I talked a little bit with Chad about how we could perhaps improve our publication of changes. And I think we should put that on the agenda. And along with that, I would like to see us, I know we have long meetings, but we've been having a lot of meetings also, which is very time consuming for us. Some other cities around, one of the things that I've learned is that some other cities around, they tie their sessions, their work sessions into each city council meeting, so everybody shows up whatever time we determine, half an hour, 45 minutes early. They have a discussion and we get that all out of the way, and then the meetings go much faster, but yet still the public who are interested in hearing all of this back and forth can be there for that. I would like to put that on the agenda, that we have a discussion about that, or a work session, or whatever you feel is appropriate.
Okay. And that's it?
That is it from me.
Great. I have nothing. I'll take a motion for adjournment.
I'll give you a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes.
Thank you.
So how? Oh, what's the biggest?